the Nigerian ideal is certainly not long fuel queues and soaring prices of goods and services. But that's where we are, 2 days after the inauguration of President Bola Tinubu. Well, I have joining me for this conversation in the studio with me is Dr. Osila Okufo, who is a development economist, and he's here to help me make sense of what's going on so far. Dr. Okufo, you're welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Moses.
First of all, let's start with how easy was it for you, or how difficult was it for you getting down here, considering the traffic?
I was actually 30 minutes late. I should have been here.
But the traffic,
it was bad.
It was really bad.
It even spilled onto the major express from side streets where you have fuel stations. So like you said, that's where we are right now, and I think it's pretty unfortunate, really, because all the president did was just to give a signaling, what we refer to as signaling in economics.
Okay.
By the end of June, because there's no budgetary allocation.
So it's not an immediate thing, actually.
It's not. I mean, it's supposed to kick in from July. Right, so I just don't understand the rationality in people now going to spend hours on the queue, which has of course led to increase in price. I don't know the amount of fuel anybody will buy between now and end of June that will last him or her to the 4 years of this government.
But should we not blame the president for the way he said it? He just said, fuel subsidy is gone. And that was the message. There was no follow-up to it. Like, okay, it's gone, but at this time, well, we'll consult, we'll meet, we'll talk about it, and maybe at this time of the year, we will remove it completely, because, I mean, the budget does not allow for it to linger beyond this time. He didn't say all of those. He just said, it's gone.
No, I won't blame the president. Again, don't forget that it was an inauguration speech. It wasn't a State of the Nation speech where he had all the time to espouse on all that, just like you articulated now. In any case, having said that, that was on the 29th, right? 2 days after, the queues are still there. If I didn't, for example, get the right message he was trying to deliver, I mean, it shouldn't take me 48 hours to now know that, okay, this is...
Okay, let's
it's everywhere now.
Let's listen to him again. Let's listen to him. Let's hear the president.
Of fuel subsidy. Unfortunate. The budget that I've glimpsed before I assume office, and what I've heard is that no provision.
Unfortunately, we can't get the audio into
there
the studio
for fuel subsidy. The fuel subsidy is gone. Subsidy can no longer justify an ever increasing cost in the wake of dry resources. We shall instead channel whatever to fund to better investment in public infrastructure, education, healthcare, and jobs that we materially provide for people.
Well, I don't know if you were able to pick out what he was saying there, but the words there were fuel subsidy is gone, basically. But you say you won't blame him because the people were supposed to, deduce that it's not an immediate thing. But the Nigerian factor, the panic buying, the marketers taking advantage of it. Even those that bought it for lesser than the price are selling for a whole lot more. And so who do we blame now? Because you can't even blame them because they're trying to make more money for when they restock.
Okay, I don't really think I want to look at it from the blame perspective.
Okay.
But if we are going to do that, fine. Like I stated earlier, I do not situate the blame, at the point of the president. He just made a statement, which is part of his economic policy plan. Okay? But I don't see how that has necessitated this herd mentality that we're seeing. Even if he didn't break it down like he posited, subsequently that information came out. What has still led to people going to queue for hours, wasting man-hour, right? Buying arts on necessary cutthroat prices, when the information you now have says the first subsidy is still there. There hasn't been importation since 29th of May 2023 to necessitate the increase in price. So what has led to the increase in price? I mean, it's simple demand and supply principles, right? The demand surged. The supply is there, but I think the suppliers now created artificial scarcity. Elementary demand says when the elementary demand and supply states that when demand increases, supply is low. What happens? The price spikes. That's exactly what you are saying. So that's why I keep using the word. It's not rational. It's not a rational behavior. So yes. So if we want to blame any party in this tripod, Mr. President, you and I, the consumers, the marketers, I'll situate the blame on the consumers and the marketers.
The consumers and the marketers.
Absolutely. All the man did was just signal. He didn't say there's scarcity. He didn't say Nigeria cannot afford to import. He just simply said subsidy is gone. We cannot. It's not sustainable because it is affecting other developmental arrangements. This is a country where you and I knew recently, just about 2 weeks ago, a private individual built a $9 billion refinery. That's a single individual. Now we spend over 12 trillion naira annually on fuel subsidy. You do the math.
When you say a single individual,
yes.
We know that he got loans from the government as well. Now, the government, he got loan from government and banks and all of that. The government who regulates the banking industry, the government who has access to monies, did not build or refurbish its refineries.
That's the point I'm making. Whether he collected loan from the IMF or the World Bank, that's not the point. The essential thing is he had the initiative, the vision on the foresight to say, listen, we can do this better, right? So the question therefore is, we have 4 refineries, at least 4 refineries. They are comatose. 12 trillion naira minimum annually can fix 1 or 2 of those refineries in 1 year. So in the first 2 years of the Tinubu administration, it can actually move the 12 trillion naira we spend on subsidizing petroleum products, right, to refurbishing and revitalizing our refineries.
All right. Before you go further, let's listen to let me quote him now. Let me quote him now. He said we commend the decision of the outgoing administration in phasing out the petrol subsidy regime, which has increasingly favored the rich more than the poor. Subsidy can no longer justify its ever-increasing costs in the wake of drying resources. We shall instead rechannel the funds into better investments in public infrastructure, education, healthcare, and jobs that will materially improve the lives of millions. Now, those were his words.
Absolutely.
I'm going to, start by asking, do you see this diversion happening into these areas that will improve the lives of Nigerians?
It's essentially about political will. The man has told you, like I keep saying, I've mentioned the word signaling several times. He has signaled, he has told Nigerians what he wants to do. You see, this habit of subsidizing, not even the rich over the poor, the very, very minute mega rich. That's why you see so many private jets, billionaires in Nigeria, and you look back, you don't see what has necessitated that wealth and, of course, the lifestyle. It is this kind of rent seeking. It's all part of the rent seeking. Is not just in the area of the foreign exchange, which I probably think we'll come back and even touched on. It's equally, it equally dovetails into the petroleum sector. You know, so it makes absolutely no sense for us to be spending all that amount of money to, you know, sustain the lifestyle of a few privileged people. So yes, if he has the political will and he really wants to etch his name in the sands of time, if those amount of monies are diverted, right, to these other areas, good for Nigerians. Our infrastructure, a lot of which is decadent and even non-existent, will be improved upon. You know, again, like I said, that money can even be, you know, pushed towards revitalizing our refineries or even building new refineries if there's a need for that. You know, so it makes absolutely no sense for us to. It keeps us down. What you are saying, that's a socialist or communist behavior, and it didn't help the old Soviet Union. It didn't help the old Soviet Union, where you have so much resources. Now, rather than keep having to improve the infrastructure and even the developmental minds of the people through education and ensuring that health is top notch, you know, you push those resources towards immediate gains. Economics is about short, medium, and long term. What has always been our medium and long term outlook economically? These are the issues, you know, that we should be at the front burner right now. And I sense that's what the president is trying to do. Yeah, there will be some discomfort initially, the short term, but the medium and long term basis, I mean, Nigeria will be better off for it.
All right. All right. You sound very, very optimistic. Some Nigerians, especially the common man, may not relate with your optimism because it's biting hard right now. It's biting on them. Some people cannot afford to take their children to school. I know a few people who had to make their children stay back home today because, you know, they couldn't provide for, you know, some things that the school have asked them to do between Monday and today, like bring books or bring one thing or the other, you know. So they've had to stay back, and then feeding is also a problem.
Moses, so all that happened between 29th of May
2023. Yes.
You must be kidding me, Moses.
Driving out this morning, I saw a neighbor who told me, she's letting her child stay back because the school insisted on her bringing a certain amount of money before she could be made to write tests.
So
she doesn't have it right now because she has used the money to buy fuel.
You know, we have this penchant for situating blame where blame really doesn't apply. You see, when certain financial situations happen, people say, I couldn't transfer your money because of a CBN policy. If you look, you find out that person didn't even have the money to pay you his or her debt. You know, so yeah, there has to be, there must always be a fall guy. And in this case, it is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. You know, but I don't see how a policy signaling 2-3 days ago has now suddenly made Nigerians impoverished. We have been impoverished for at least 8 years. We have been, you know. So this is a follow through to what has happened, what has gone wrong in recent past. I'm not saying, of course, that that's what the president said hasn't had some effect. It has had some telling effects, but again, I talked about rationality. it's rationality. Part of rationality is the ability to plan, and planning is what is a guide to an action. Um, if you signal to me what you want to do, it goes upon me to now come back, look back, and re-strategize on certain things I need to do. You prioritize. You know, probably that family did not prioritize that child going to school over going to um, some expensive eatery over the weekend. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying, I mean, again, you prioritize what is really, really important to you. I don't think what happened on the 29th is what has led to all this
right now.
incapacitation. I mean, let's tell ourselves the truth.
All right, let's look at what the president said on economy. He said, we target a higher GDP growth, and to significantly reduce unemployment, we intend to accomplish this by taking the following steps. First, budgetary reform stimulating the economy without engendering inflation will be instituted. Secondly, he said, industrial policy will utilize the full range of fiscal measures to promote domestic manufacturing and lessen import dependency. You know that Nigeria has been heavily dependent on importation for quite a long time, longer than 8 years, in fact. Thirdly, electricity will become more accessible and affordable to businesses and homes alike. And then he went on to say power generation should nearly double and transmission and distribution networks improve. He said we will encourage states to develop local sources as well. And he also said, I have a message for our investors. Now, I'd like you to respond to all of this, especially this part, where he said, local and foreign, our government shall review all their complaints about multiple taxation and various anti-investment inhibitions. We shall ensure that investors and foreign businesses repatriate their hard-earned dividends and profits home. Why has it been difficult for foreign investors to repatriate their currencies, to repatriate their monies back home?
Again, everything still boils down to political will. I don't know if it's been difficult for them to repatriate. The question you probably want to ask is, how much of those foreign investments do we have? A lot of those industries you and I knew growing up, they left Nigeria. So if they're not operating here, what are they repatriating? I don't think anybody stopped MTN from repatriating their funds, right? But what is the number of such industries do you have within the economy? So that's not an issue as far as I'm concerned. I think the major thing is he talked about government applying the full fiscal measures. So what are those fiscal measures? You know, in economics we have monetary and fiscal policies. So the full fiscal measures, let's break it down. You're talking about government spending and taxation, which is critical. Mm-hmm. Now you can expand or contract the economy one way or the other using those policy tools. You either increase government spending, which is very key and critical in the Nigerians. I mean, we are a frontier emerging economy, or you reduce taxation. That will help investors to have enough from their earnings to plow back into the business or even repatriate, as the case may be. You know, so that emasculation that is prevalent right now will be reduced. You have taxation from the godfather around the streets, anybody who can wear a jackboot and khaki. You have from the local government, you have from the state governments, you have from the federal government. So these are choking not just foreign investors, even the local investors, even the corner shop owners, even the small business owners, you know, and the reason why the SME space has not bloomed or blossomed as we anticipated or as should be given our size is because these investors, these players are being, emasculated by too much taxation and oftentimes forceful. Sometimes they even lock up your shops or your business premises. So there has to be the climate has to be friendly to attract foreign investors. The laws have to be there such that if a foreigner is coming into the country, for example, and you want to partner with people here or even do business, you are sure that the law courts will give you justice if there's an infraction, if there's a stepping on your fundamental rights and all that. So it's a chain that has to be looked at. Even you need to look at the judiciary, also. It's a wonderful speech. It's positive. I'm upbeat because of the speech, not necessarily because of any other reason. I'm looking at it beyond who is passing the message, right? And don't forget again that the one thing that we as a people cannot lose is hope. You always have to believe that a new thing will bring positive outcomes to your life. So if this government follows through with all these, we are better off for it.
If it follows through.
If that's where the political will now does come in.
Now, the government talked about targeting higher GDP growth.
6%.
How do you think they can make that work?
If all these things are put in place, that is automatic. If manufacturing increases, if you plug leakages, it's a whole lot of leakages. If you engender or facilitate foreign direct investment, or even local investment increase, if you put in place all these measures that he has articulated, and they help to improve the business environment, that's what drives the GDP. That's what drives the GDP. So there has to be a step-by-step systematic approach to ensuring that these are not just words. These are not just flowery words. These are things that must be followed through, realistically, to ensure that we attain that. Nigeria, during the Jonathan administration, our GDP was 7.5% minimum. Inflation was single digit. All that changed subsequently. It shows that we have the capacity to do certain things. The economy was rebased. It became Africa's #1. Became the third fastest growing economy globally. It became the 26th largest economy in the world. These were positive signals. If there had been a follow-through on all that, governance is supposed to be a continuum from government to government, but because certain things were not done, there were no certain follow-through. That's why we are where we are. By now, we shouldn't be talking about our economy will grow 6.5% when we had even achieved 7.5%.
Now, he also talked about the monetary policy and the need for the central bank to work towards a unified exchange rate.
Yeah.
How can we make this happen? From your experience, really, judging by what we have currently.
What was fueling the two markets is because one market is essentially supplying the other market. How do the black market operators, how do they get their dollars? They don't print it. They get it from the regulated system. This is the rent-seeking attitude that we're talking about. Certain people, because of certain influence, they go to the central bank or the banks. They get dollar that has been allocated at official rates. Let's say 10 naira, right? Okay. And then they now take that dollar, just walk across the street and give it to some parallel operator waiting, and they sell it at 15 naira. In less than 2 minutes, we have made what? 50%. Multiply that by the amount of dollars you have sold. That person comes to you and I, or will go to the person and will buy at 18 naira. That person has made a 3 naira spread. Whereas originally this thing cost 10 naira. The essential thing, this is what everybody knows. The essential thing is the supply chain. So if you nip and cut off that supply chain, ensure that the regulatory body, which is the central bank, does the right thing. People who should have access to dollars are people who really should have access to dollars, not body, paddy arrangements. The banks have to ensure that importers of products are the ones who get these dollars, not people who are not importing anything. They are just rent seeking and they profited. It's part of why you have so much again private jets, billionaires, and you cannot look back and say this is what led to this person achieving this. That is why you hardly find any Nigerian billionaire that can write a book that you and I can read, articulating or showing how he
Step by step,
yes, how they made their money. None. Maybe few of them. Probably the same to some extent. I won't mention names. Just a very, very few of them. 99% of them, they cannot. It's just through rent-seeking behavior. How do you grow an economy when there's nothing sustaining that wealth? The industries are comatose. A lot of them have been shut down. How will unemployment not rise, not increase, when manufacturing is down?
This just brings to my just reminded me of a conversation I was having some days back. We were talking about the Dangote Refinery.
Okay.
How the report came out that not having started operations, he's been able to pay back 70% of the loans taken. So it raised questions, and we couldn't really place our hand on it. How do you explain that?
I can only extrapolate.
Okay, please do.
Okay,
Yeah, okay.
Again, we're talking about Dangote here. He has a conglomerate. I want to believe that whatever contribution he made towards building that refinery, and like you then said, he borrowed from banks and even the government through the central bank, which is good. He must have, of course, pulled some funds from Dangote Sugar, Dangote Cement, and Dangote other things. Okay? Because he has a vision and he believes, okay, whatever monies I move from these other areas
can be replaced
within, just like that. So I suspect that because those other businesses you and I know are thriving, they are doing very well. Of course, probably borrowed from them. Okay. That's my rational thinking.
Okay.
Yes, if the refinery has not become operational, of course, there's no way I can sit here, or even he cannot come and sit here and justify how I was able to pay, because that ought to be the source, the essential source. But if you are dealing with a guy who is everywhere, who is spread everywhere, and positively so economically, of course you can move funds from one leg of the business to another. Borrowing from yourself is cheap because it comes at essentially no cost. And so I think the smart thing he did, why he probably now needed to pay, was to reduce the burden, the debt burden of elongating, keeping those facilities running.
Okay.
So yeah, I think he's been smart all around.
Okay. Thanks for helping me make sense of that. Now let's look at the cash crunch that affected Nigerians when the government came up with the
redesign.
Yes, the redesign of the naira, the cash crunch that followed afterwards, and this administration saying, look, we'll find a way to unify things. The old notes and the new notes will go side by side, in as much as we know right now that we are not seeing the new notes. I made a withdrawal yesterday from 20,000 naira. I was only given 500 naira, one 500 naira new note in 20,000 naira.
It's just a reminder that it's still there.
So the question, one is just wondering, what can the government do differently? What has been the challenges that Nigerians have had to face, and the economic impact of this whole thing?
Okay. First off, the outgone administration of President Muhammadu Buhari actually extended the old naira notes, being used side by side with the new naira notes. So
December.
to December, so it's not really this administration's policy. Now, talking about the pain Nigerians went through, it was unnecessary. It was artificial, and I'm still surprised that Emefiele is still the governor of Central Bank of Nigeria. Now I'm going to mention a name. I'm still surprised that Emefiele is still the governor of Central Bank of Nigeria, because what he did to me was akin to economic sabotage. It was unnecessary. What that did is, if we were to actually look at the figures from the National Bureau of Statistics, if this economy has dipped further, it was because of that ill-thought-out policy. Now, you printed or claim to have printed certain amount of currencies that we are not even seeing. Quality not even as good as the old Naira notes. And let's tell ourselves the truth. You know, so it didn't make any sense to me, and I think that there should be an inquest by this current governor, and I think this president will look into that matter, because it made absolutely no sense. It affected us negatively, economically, you know, and it's still doing it. You see, oftentimes when I'm driving out, and if I'm with somebody, I say, the banks are now like jam centers, even now worse than fuel stations, because of the long queues. That's manpower wasting. You know, so it wasn't necessary. So, you know, see, the sad part of that whole arrangement is this. In economics, there's what we call seigniorage. Seigniorage is when nations make profit from printing their currencies. Nations actually make profit printing currencies, because the amount that you spend printing let's say the 500 Naira notes is not 500 Naira. But when it is now sold to Moses and Osilama, it is 500 Naira. May have been manufactured or produced at even 100 Naira. So the government, the CBN, is making a spread of what? 400 Naira. So you critical mass that. So the question therefore is, why should something that should have been positive for us, you know, then lead to such pain, and unnecessary, economic downturn, So that is the difference between the cost of producing a currency, right, and the value, the face value of that currency.
All right. Let's look at where he talked about infrastructure. He did say that progress will be made. They will improve road networks, improve the rail, the ports as well, and they give priority to some of these things. The ports, we know the ports it's been comatose, and the fact that port activities has been restricted to certain states. Do you see this administration working on ports in places like Calabar and Port Harcourt to ensure that, yes, that industry can really expand and people can bring in goods from anywhere, and those economies will grow if port activities are improved? Do you see this?
You've answered the question. In fact, when you were leading to it, my mind was, Apapa Port is not the only port in Nigeria. It's not necessarily comatose, it's just underperforming. Unnecessary gridlock. It's not comatose, it's still functioning. But it can be a lot better. But then the question is, there's Cocoa Port, there is the Calabar Port. There are different ports all around the country. Just make them functional, such that the average businessman at Onitsha or Aba doesn't need to come to through Lagos when Calabar is there. That will help reduce cost of bringing in these products, and of course the
but do you think this is something that this administration will look at?
Yeah, it still boils down to political will. Why shouldn't they look at it? Look at it. The ports are there. They are there. It's like you have a car. You just pack it and you're not, it's your fault that you're not utilizing it. You've spent billions of dollars putting those facilities in place. Why are you not maximizing the opportunities? So that is a question we need to ask. You know, I know and I recall that during the run-up to the presidential election, one of the presidential candidates, not the one that eventually became president, actually hammered on this aspect of it. Again, I won't mention names. It's not necessary. But you see, sometimes the political process helps whoever became the winner to even look at what the other people have articulated and say, okay, I can pick from here, use this idea, because we don't know it all. You know, so it's something that I think that this government needs to look at and see how they can make the Calabar port especially to be functional. That will handle the south-south and the southeast, which is a major point where all these things actually come and then maybe even then end up. Why not take it closer to them? You know, so it's about political will and a desire, again, like I said, to etch your name in good. These things are not, it's not rocket science. You don't have to be Albert Einstein to do the right thing, and it takes just the right leadership. Look at what Paul Kagame is doing in Rwanda. It takes just a desire to make a difference. That's a country that came out from genocide. They still would have remained where they are and be one of those countries that are a shame to Africa. You understand? But one man made a lot of difference, and we are proud to say Kagame is a president from Africa. So when people talk about is it a black thing, and I'm saying no, it's not a black thing. Kagame is not Caucasian. He's black. He's African. It's just a function of saying we can do this. Probably some other opportunities we may want to look at. If you plug the leakages in the Nigerian economy, oil is not a major earner. Oil will not be our major earner. You plug leakages in this economy, you find out that, you know, there are other areas where this government can make so much money. Taxation, consumption tax, you know, and things like that. You know,
wouldn't that put burden on the people?
Not necessarily. I mean, taxation is not a bad thing. It's you know, you have positive and negative taxation if you apply it properly. It's not a function of, even the most advanced economies, I mean, they are driven by taxation. Essentially everything you consume, you have to pay for it, and there's a tax burden. But being a burden doesn't mean that it must be. It's just a support. It could be a support, you know, not necessarily that it's killing you, it's choking you. In any case, what you don't have the capacity to consume, don't have the desire to consume. If I can't afford to buy a wine of 500,000 naira, which some people at the snap of the fingers they buy, why would I have the desire, the urge? I'll stay where I can afford to be relaxed and not be pressured. I won't go and have BP for nothing. You understand? I'll be able to meet other exigencies, i.e., sure that I'm able to meet my bills, pay my children's school fees, meet health challenges if they come, support immediate and extended family, just be at peace with myself. You know, so it's a whole lot. You know.
All right. So what would be your economic advice to this administration as they go into, you know, administering the country?
Okay, to a very large extent. Again, we probably would then not want to look at it both from the monetary and fiscal leg. Okay. If you want to look at my advice probably to the Monetary Policy Committee, the MPC, would be that they need to reduce the NPR. Okay. Okay, because that's the rate at which they lend to the banks, and then the banks, of course, make their spread and lend to the manufacturer, the business, or the other agents within the economic operating space. You know, so if that is checked, if it is reduced, of course, it means cost of borrowing will be low, which then will then snowball into cost of production being low, which then means that cost of selling, you and I purchasing those products will be low. which means inflation will be low. Are you seeing the link? Right? Which means standard of living will be high. Because your ability to now purchase more, which means manufacturing will increase, which means unemployment will dip, which means disposable income will increase. So it's a cycle that goes, round and round and has, that positive impact. So that is one. Again, too, I talked about a reduction in taxation. This economy needs to be, pumped up. Okay, the government needs to look at the tax regime, which the president alluded to. So if that is done, it will help the manufacturing base. And don't forget that manufacturing is not just manufacturing. Manufacturing has 13 aspects of it within 13 sectors at least make up the manufacturing.
Can we just run through them in 1 minute?
There is, when you talk of manufacturing, even the agricultural sector is manufacturing. Because you have agricultural produces that are now given to those who produce juice, for example, right, or convert them into other areas. Mining is part of manufacturing. True. You understand what I'm saying? The food beverage industry. It's a whole lot. So manufacturing is not. So manufacturing affects essentially every garment, every sector of the economy.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Osilama Okufu. I hope I got that right.
Osilama Okufu.
Okufu.
Yes.
All right, Osilama Okufu. Thank you very much, development economist. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me.
It's been enlightening listening to you.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, Kayla will be here to take us into the world of entertainment.